You know, usually when we talk about the technology we use every single day, there is this underlying expectation of a neatly manicured walled garden.
Right, like a pristine public park.
Exactly, a beautifully landscaped park. You buy the shiny device, you pay your monthly subscription fee, and the tech giants essentially point at the entrance and say, well, there it is.
Enjoy the smooth, curated paths.
Yeah, and please don't step on the grass. You stay on the designated path, you get exactly what you paid for, it's clean. But then you look at the stack of sources we have in front of us today, and suddenly that pristine walled garden is twisting into something completely unrecognizable.
It really is. It's turning into a funhouse mirror maze.
Right. We are looking at a digital landscape that is honestly becoming actively hostile to the user. What we are seeing is a massive, high-stakes tug-of-war happening right now.
And the friction is palpable.
Oh, absolutely. On one side, you have the ultimate corporate control of our devices, and to a certain extent our actual reality. And on the other side, you have the users, who are desperately digging escape tunnels out of the park.
It is the absolute definition of a structural ecosystem collapse. Both sides of this tug-of-war are accelerating at just breakneck speed.
The walls are getting higher?
Yeah, but the tools to dig under them are getting sharper.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a massive mission ahead of us, and if you are listening to this, you are going to want to buckle up.
We have a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. We are going to explore how artificial intelligence is not just altering, but entirely overriding our video games, our art, and our daily search results.
So we'll look at the exact mechanisms corporations are using to squeeze you.
Yes, the hidden fees, the surveillance tactics, the uncancelable paywalls, but, and this is the best part, the light at the end of the tunnel, we are also going to look at how everyday users are fighting back.
Through things like Linux gaming and physical media.
Exactly. The sudden booming resurrection of physical media and highly repairable hardware that is literally shocking the industry. We're going to break all of this down. So let's start with the pixels right in front of our eyes. Let's talk about the AI illusion.
This is a perfect place to start our analysis. It really strikes at the very heart of what is considered real in our digital spaces anymore.
So we have this massive announcement from Nvidia regarding something called DLSS 5.
Right. To give you listening a bit of foundational context on the technology here, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang got up on stage at their massive GTC event recently and unveiled DLSS 5.
And for years, DLSS has stood for Deep Learning Super Sampling.
Exactly.
Just so I have my head wrapped around the basics, DLSS historically was basically a magic trick to save your computer from bursting into flames, right?
It's a fun way to put it, yeah. It was an efficiency tool.
You tell the game to run at a lower, less demanding resolution, like, say, 1080p.
Right, and then an AI algorithm upscales the image so it looks like crisp 4K on your monitor. It fills in the blanks.
Because rendering a highly complex 3D world in native 4K just requires massive computational horsepower.
Exactly. DLSS allowed the graphics card to paint a smaller picture and then use a trained neural network to essentially guess what the larger picture should look like.
But version 5 is an entirely different beast.
Oh, entirely. Jensen Huang literally stood on stage and called it the company's most significant breakthrough in computer graphics since the debut of real-time ray tracing in 2018.
Which is a massive sweeping statement, because real-time ray tracing fundamentally changed the industry.
It was a leap in physics.
Right. Instead of developers manually painting shadows into a scene, ray tracing physically simulates the behavior of light bouncing around a digital room. But Huang defined DLSS 5 not as an upscaler, but as generative control at the geometry level.
He is claiming that they are infusing the actual underlying pixels with photorealistic lighting and materials generated on the fly.
But looking at the sources, the pushback from observers, developers, and critics has been absolutely brutal.
It has. People are looking at these live tech demos and calling it an AI slop filter.
An AI slop filter, I love that phrasing. They are accusing Nvidia of yassifying faces, basically applying aggressive beauty filters to gritty video game characters.
It got so universally memeable that Domino's Pizza in the UK actually jumped onto social media to post jokes mocking the technology.
Domino's Pizza. When the pizza guys are making fun of your rendering tech, you know you've hit a nerve.
And you could see that Nvidia was incredibly defensive about that exact framing. They immediately pinned a comment on their official demo video, insisting, in very strong terms, that it is not a filter.
Yeah, Huang was asked about these specific critiques in a press Q&A, and he stated that the critics were completely wrong.
He reiterated that this is not post-processing happening at the flat frame level, but rather it is generative control of the 3D geometry itself.
He wants the world to believe the AI understands the physical space of the game.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because the hardware reality and the technical explanations coming from Nvidia's own engineers seem to completely contradict the CEO's grand marketing claims.
That is the crucial disconnect here. You have Jacob Freeman, a prominent figure at Nvidia, answering direct technical questions from tech YouTuber Daniel Owen.
And Owen asks the million-dollar question, hey, is this model actually aware of the 3D geometry and the 3D depth of the scene?
And Freeman responds that DLSS 5 takes the rendered 2D frame plus motion vectors as its input.
And it is trained end-to-end to understand complex scene semantics.
And that phrase, scene semantics, is doing a tremendous amount of heavy lifting there.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if we break down what Freeman actually admitted, it dismantles Huang's claim. If the system is taking a 2D frame and motion vectors as its input, it fundamentally does not have access to the underlying 3D architectural facts of the game world.
Wait, pause right there for me. Let's make sure we are all on the same page. What exactly is a motion vector in this context? Because it sounds like a physics term.
It is essentially an arrow that tells the computer where a specific pixel is headed in the next fraction of a second.
Okay.
Imagine you are watching a video of a tennis ball flying across the screen.
Right.
The motion vector is a tiny piece of invisible data attached to the ball that says, in the next frame, these yellow pixels are going to move 2 inches to the right.
Game engines generate these vectors so that temporal upscalers know how to blend frames together smoothly without blurring.
Exactly.
Okay, I get it. It's predicting the trajectory.
Precisely. But here is the catch. A 2D image plus a set of directional arrows is still just flat data.
Right, it's a flat plane.
The AI does not know that the tennis ball is a hollow rubber sphere occupying a specific 3D coordinate in a simulated universe. It is just looking at a flat image, looking at the arrows, and guessing what the 3D depth probably is based on billions of images it was trained on.
That is, by definition, a filter.
An incredibly advanced AI-driven filter, but a filter nonetheless.
And the hardware required to run this filter betrays how incredibly demanding this guesswork is.
Oh, it's staggering.
The live demos they showed required an absurd, astronomical amount of hardware. They were running 2 RTX 5090 graphics cards simultaneously.
One card to run the actual video game, and the second card entirely dedicated to running the DLSS 5 AI overlay.
2 5090s. Just to put that into perspective for you listening, the RTX 5090 is the absolute bleeding edge of consumer hardware right now.
It is a monstrously powerful, massive brick of technology.
And it is monstrously expensive. We're talking thousands of dollars. And NVIDIA's vision of the future requires you to have a second one of these behemoths just to run this AI overlay.
It's a huge ask for the consumer.
It really is. But let's talk about what that overlay actually looks like in practice, because the visual anomalies in these sources, in these live demos, are just staggering. What stands out to you from those demos?
What's fascinating here is how the AI aggressively hallucinates details that fundamentally do not belong because it relies on a homogenized mean of reality.
A homogenized mean, yeah.
For instance, look at the demo they ran using the game Starfield.
Oh, the side of the guy's head. I couldn't believe that when I saw the clip.
It was so blatant.
There's a character in Starfield who has a specific stylized haircut. The side of his head is closely shaved.
Right.
With DLSS 5 turned on, the AI looks at the side of his head, doesn't understand the artistic choice of a shaved fade, and just completely hallucinates a thick patch of realistically rendered hair right where there was none.
It just drew hair on him.
Literally just painted it right on.
Because the AI's training data suggests that a human head generally have hair there. It doesn't respect the character design, it respects the statistical average of its training set.
That is so wild.
Or take the Resident Evil demo. The protagonist, Leon Kennedy, is supposed to look a very certain way. He is traversing a dark, moody, terrifying environment.
But in the DLSS 5 version, the AI steps in.
The contrast is massively cranked up, the lighting is globally blasted as if a spotlight is on him, and his face is heavily altered.
He ends up looking like a hyper-realistic B-movie actor.
He does. He looks like a weird, overly lit Brendan Fraser impersonator.
It totally strips away the Shaviter atmosphere of a horror game.
And in the sports game demo they showed, the AI completely loses the plot the second the physics get complicated.
Oh, the soccer one. A player is moving incredibly fast, and the fabric of his shirt turns into this shifting, glitchy, algorithmic mess.
His arm momentarily vanishes into his torso.
And the soccer ball, the most important object on the screen, literally physically warps out of existence for a few frames.
This exposes the core flaw in using a generative model to overwrite real-time rendered graphics. The AI doesn't know what a soccer ball is.
It has no idea.
It doesn't understand the physical properties of insulated leather. It just knows what patterns of pixels generally correlate to a soccer ball in a flat image.
So when the motion vectors get messy because objects are overlapping quickly, the AI gets confused.
And the illusion completely shatters.
Right. But beyond the technical glitches, which, let's be fair, they will surely try to patch, this sparks a massive, industry-wide philosophical debate about artistic intent.
Absolutely. The intent of the human creator.
Yes, this is what I want to dig into. Imagine a company taking your absolute favorite classic, moody film, let's say The Godfather or Blade Runner,
Okay.
and instead of just giving you a high-definition scan of the original film reel, they algorithmically blast it with stadium lighting, crank the color saturation to maximum, and put modern Instagram beauty filters on Marlon Brando or Harrison Ford.
It completely changes the text.
It does. I have to ask, are we just looking for shiny, pretty things, or do we care about games as a hard-fought technical and artistic achievement simulating a specific universe?
Right, a specific vision.
Like, think about Pokemon. The entire charm is the stylized, anime-inspired aesthetic.
Yeah.
If you use an AI to force Pokemon to be photorealistic, you suddenly have a Snorlax covered in hyper-realistic, gross, matted bear fur lying in the middle of a path.
That is a terrifying mental image.
Or think about the How to Train Your Dragon movies. The human characters have giant heads and cartoony proportions.
If you drop those stylized characters into an unsettlingly photorealistic, mathematically perfect AI forest, it creates this massive, nauseating cognitive dissonance.
It completely ruins the vibe.
That dissonance is key to understanding the backlash. Better, more realistic graphics do not always mean better art.
Exactly.
If you look at the indie game scene, a developer might create a pixel art game where the severe visual limitations are the entire point.
The shadows are painted exactly where the artist wanted them to be.
To evoke a feeling of isolation or warmth or dread. Injecting an AI-driven HDR global lighting system over that fundamentally overwrites the artist's specific human choices with a generalized algorithmic guess of what good lighting looks like.
It is the sterilization of art.
It really is.
But to play devil's advocate here, Nvidia says, hey, calm down. Developers will have controls. We aren't forcing this.
Right, they claim it's optional.
They say developers can use sliders for the intensity of the generation, or they can use masking tools to block off certain areas of the frame from the AI.
Which is an incredibly clever way of shifting the burden.
Oh, a total deflection.
They are putting the labor back onto the developer to rein in the AI that is actively overwriting their work. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the real danger isn't just the existence of a sloppy, optional filter.
It is the market dynamics at play.
Exactly. Nvidia is not some random modding community on the internet releasing a fun, optional texture pack for people to download. Nvidia holds roughly a 95% market share in discrete gaming GPUs.
95%. They absolutely dictate the direction of the entire industry.
And that is the terrifying part. Because when a company with 95% market share says, this is DLSS 5, this is the future of computer graphics, the massive publishers who hold the purse strings listen.
They sure do. If you are a publishing executive looking at a spreadsheet, why would you authorize spending tens of millions of dollars to pay a massive team of human artists to painstakingly handlight a scene?
Or optimize the textures for different hardware and craft a cohesive, unique art style.
Why do that when you can just fire half your art department, slap basic white, untextured geometry into the level, and rely on the user's $2,000 graphics card to hallucinate the complex details in real time?
It creates a deeply perverse incentive structure for game development.
Yeah.
It normalizes this hyper-real, high-contrast, slightly hallucinatory AI slop aesthetic as the baseline for all major games.
It effectively puts global beauty standards, environmental lighting choices, and creative control into the hands of a hardware company's proprietary black box AI model.
You are homogenizing human expression into a mathematically averaged output. The medium loses its texture.
It's chilling, and honestly, it perfectly transitions us into the next phase of this deep dive. Because AI isn't just overwriting the pixels in our video games.
No, it is actively overriding the fundamental information we rely on every single day to navigate the real world.
We are seeing a complete breakdown in basic internet utility. Welcome to the AI arms race.
The video game industry is just a visual microcosm of a much larger crisis. When we shift our focus to search engines, news retrieval, and digital infrastructure,
Yeah.
the stakes get significantly higher.
Let's look at what is happening with Google search.
Google has been aggressively rolling out AI to automatically summarize, rewrite, and alter news headlines directly within the search results before you even click a link.
And the examples highlighted in our stack of sources are jaw-dropping. They really illustrate how dangerous this is.
Let's talk about the Verge article.
Yes, the prominent tech publication The Verge wrote a highly critical, deeply researched article about a new AI tool. The actual headline written by the human journalist was, "I used the cheat on everything AI tool, and it didn't help me cheat on anything."
It's a negative review.
It explicitly tells the reader that the tool is useless, buggy, and fails at its core promise.
But when you search for that exact topic, Google's AI altered the headline in the search results to read simply, "Cheat on everything AI tool."
It completely inverts the semantic meaning of the journalism.
By stripping out the context, it turns a piece of critical warning journalism into what looks like a glowing product endorsement or a tutorial.
It presents the tool as functional.
Right.
And it gets so much worse. Another example in the data showed an article that was published simply to provide a routine administrative update on a foreign drone ban.
It was just a status report.
Just a status report. Google's AI decided to rewrite that headline in the search results to say, U.S. reverses foreign drone ban.
It literally stated the exact opposite of reality.
It fabricated a massive geopolitical policy shift out of thin air.
And we have to ask why Google's systems would do this. It is vital to understand that this is not a random glitch or a bug. It is an optimization.
The AI is functioning exactly as it was designed.
Google is fundamentally optimizing its search algorithms for two metrics: click-through rates and user retention within their own ecosystem.
And U.S. reverses drone ban is a much more dramatic, emotionally charged, and clickable headline than a dry update on drone ban.
Exactly. Cheat on everything AI tool sparks significantly more curiosity than a headline telling you the tool is broken and not worth your time.
When the AI is instructed at a systemic level to maximize engagement metrics, objective truth becomes entirely secondary to virality.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
If the machine realizes that lying to you gets you to click 12% more often, it will just lie to you.
And we are seeing entire social platforms completely collapse when they try to build their foundation around this AI engagement model. Look at the recent saga with Dig.
The social news aggregator.
Yeah, so Dig relaunched with an open beta, and the founder, Kevin Rose, originally pitched AI as this ultimate magical silver bullet.
He gave interviews saying AI was going to completely remove all the janitorial work of moderating a massive online community.
Which, if we look at the history of Silicon Valley, is the eternal, unattainable dream of every tech executive.
Scaling an infinite, massive community without having to pay the massive overhead of human moderators to keep it safe.
Right. The dream of free labor. So what actually happened?
Exactly 2 months after the highly publicized launch, they had to completely shut the open beta down and pull the plug.
Within hours of going live, the platform was absolutely obliterated by AI bot spam and SEO spammers.
And we should clarify what SEO spam means in this context. It's not just people posting links to buy cheap sunglasses.
Right. It's way more sophisticated now.
It is networks of automated bots using AI to generate thousands of highly articulate, seemingly relevant comments and posts that subtly manipulate search engine rankings or drive traffic to external grifts.
Yes, exactly. And Dig was defenseless. They banned tens of thousands of accounts in a panic. They tried deploying multiple third-party verification tools, but nothing worked.
The very AI that was supposed to clean up the mess and do the janitorial work just invited millions of other AI bots to flood the zone with absolute garbage.
The human users were instantly drowned out.
It's the ultimate Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. The platform deploys AI to filter content, so the spammers deploy better AI to mimic human content.
Which forces the platform to deploy stricter AI.
Which inevitably ends up banning real humans who act slightly too methodically.
And you see this exact same dynamic playing out right now with massive real-world consequences in the job market. Our sources refer to this as the AI resume arms race.
This section of the notes was so bleak, but so fascinating.
So picture this. You have a human job applicant who is desperate. They've been laid off. They need to pay rent.
Instead of spending hours tailoring a cover letter, they're using an AI tool to automatically apply to 500-plus jobs at once.
The AI tool scrapes the specific job posting, and in seconds it generates a highly optimized, keyword-stuffed, perfectly formatted resume.
It even generates a bespoke portfolio website tailored specifically for the hyper-niche requirements of that single role.
The applicant becomes a volume business.
But on the other side of the table, the corporate human resource departments are equally desperate.
They open a job listing for a mid-level marketing manager and suddenly receive 14,000 perfectly formatted applications in 2 days.
It is humanly impossible to read them.
So what do? They deploy their own applicant tracking system, an ATS powered by AI, to aggressively filter the resumes based on complex, hidden semantic parameters.
It is exactly like two robots talking to each other at a loud party while the humans wait out in the rain.
Yes. The applicant's AI is just trying to trick the HR department's AI into validating a match. No human is actually communicating with another human anywhere in the process.
And the tragic irony is, if you are an applicant who decides to do it the old-fashioned way,
If you take the time to sit down, pour your heart out, and write a genuine human cover letter detailing your passion for the role,
you might get filtered out and rejected in a millisecond because your human phrasing didn't perfectly align with the machine's hidden algorithmic parameters.
this raises an important question, perhaps the most important question of this entire deep dive. What happens when our primary systems of social and economic organization,
Whether that is searching for truth on Google, building communities on Dig, or finding employment to survive?
what happens when they are entirely captured by adversarial algorithms?
Google, Dig, and corporate HR departments are all prioritizing efficiency and engagement metrics over actual human satisfaction and truth.
When the internet optimizes for algorithms rather than human utility, the systems simply collapse under the weight of their own slop.
It creates a zero-trust environment.
A zero-trust environment. That is exactly what it feels like. So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now?
It means the digital spaces we used to trust implicitly are degrading.
But here is the kicker. While the AI is filling the room with smoke and confusion, the massive corporations running these platforms are using that exact distraction to aggressively tighten their grip on our wallets and our privacy.
Which brings us to the next massive shift we need to examine. Let's talk about the corporate squeeze.
The walled garden we discussed at the beginning is essentially becoming a prison.
And the rent to stay in the cell is going up. Let's look at a prime example from the software world, Adobe.
Adobe, the creators of Photoshop, Premiere, the tools that basically run the creative industry.
They just settled a massive lawsuit brought by the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission for $150 million.
And the lawsuit was centered entirely over deceptive subscription practices.
And the mechanical details of these deceptive practices are staggering when you lay them out. Adobe was accused of deliberately burying early termination fees deep within dense fine print.
And hiding them behind obscure, microscopic hyperlinks.
If you were a freelance artist who signed up for a Creative Cloud subscription and you hit a hard month and tried to cancel to save money,
You could be hit with a surprise cancellation fee totaling 50% of your remaining annual contract term,
that is hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
just for the privilege of trying to stop using a piece of software.
And the cancellation process itself wasn't just clicking a button. It was designed as a nightmare maze.
The DOJ detailed how users were forced into looping phone trees, put on hold for hours, forced to talk to retention agents who wouldn't take no for an answer.
Or forced through multi-page digital click-throughs that would intentionally crash or loop.
It was a system designed specifically, with malice aforethought, to delay and frustrate users until they just gave up and kept paying the monthly fee.
And of course, the cherry on top, as part of the settlement, Adobe admits absolutely no wrongdoing.
Which brings us to the crucial context of that fine. When a news anchor reads that headline, $150 million sounds like a massive punitive penalty to the average person.
But let's look at the corporate math. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, Adobe pulled in $6.4 billion in revenue.
Wait, let me put that math into a real-world perspective for you listening, because this blew my mind. That $150 million fine is the equivalent of less than 3 days of Adobe's quarterly revenue.
3 days.
If you're an individual making $45,000 a year, that fine is the equivalent of getting a couple of minor speeding tickets.
You are not going to permanently alter your commute and stop speeding if the fine is just spare pocket change compared to the massive profits you were raking in by breaking the rules in the first place.
It's not a deterrent. It is literally just a line item on a spreadsheet. It's the cost of doing business.
Precisely. The penalty fundamentally does not alter the underlying corporate behavior because the math doesn't demand it.
And we see this exact same squeeze happening not just with massive enterprise software, but with enthusiast tools as well, like Plex.
Plex is such a fascinating case study in how the life cycle of tech platforms works. Plex built its massive, fiercely loyal core user base by being the ultimate free alternative to paid streaming platforms.
Right. If you had a hard drive full of your own ripped movies and family videos, Plex was the beautiful interface that let you organize and stream your own personal media library anywhere.
But now, they are enforcing a hard paywall on remote streaming for smart TVs, Samsung, LG, PlayStation, Xbox apps.
If you want to stream your own media that you own on a server you built outside your home network, you now must pay Plex $6.99 a month for a Plex Pass, or a $1.99 a month standalone remote watch pass.
And the deep irony detailed in the sources is that while they are nickel and diming their core users for functionality that used to be foundational, the application itself is actively degrading in quality.
Our sources noted severe technical issues on the ground level. When users try to download their files for offline viewing, a feature they are paying for, the user interface is glitching out.
It is failing to sort files properly, and in some cases, it is just playing random, chaotic, 12-second snippets of a video before abruptly crashing back to a menu screen.
You are effectively being forced to pay a premium for a fundamentally broken experience.
Pay us more to access your own stuff on an app that crashes.
It's wild. But the squeeze isn't just financial. It is an incredibly aggressive, stealthy attack on your personal privacy. Let's talk about Microsoft and the saga of Windows Recall.
Windows Recall is a feature baked into Microsoft's new Copilot Plus PCs. The core mechanism of Recall is that it takes constant, regular, high-resolution screenshots of absolutely everything you do on your screen.
Everything. Your emails, your bank statements, your private chats.
It stores these images locally on your hard drive and supposedly uses an NBU, another processing unit, which is dedicated AI hardware, to analyze the images.
The pitch is that it lets you use AI to search your past activity, like a photographic memory. Hey, PC, what was that blue sweater I was looking at last Tuesday?
When Microsoft first announced this, it was defaulted to enabled, meaning it was taking pictures of you without you necessarily realizing it, before massive public backlash forced them to backtrack and make it an opt-in feature.
Right. And after that initial backlash, Microsoft swore up and down that they completely fixed the underlying security architecture.
They put out press releases claiming they redesigned the entire system to use complex virtual-based security enclaves.
They basically said, don't worry, it's locked in a digital vault.
But a prominent security researcher named Alex Hagen decided to test that theory. He cracked it again using an updated version of an extraction tool called Total Recall.
And what did he find inside Microsoft's impenetrable vault?
The tool exposed an unencrypted SQLite database that was tracking all of the user's activity in plain, readable text.
We need to pause and emphasize how catastrophic that is from a software engineering perspective.
For those who might not be deep into database architecture, a SQLite database is incredibly basic. It is essentially a slightly glorified digital filing cabinet or spreadsheet.
Storing highly sensitive total surveillance data, your passwords, your financial data, your private conversations, in plain text means that if any bad actor, malware, or rogue script gets access to your machine, they do not even need to crack a cryptographic key to read your life.
It is just sitting there, completely readable.
And what is perhaps most alarming is that Hagen's Total Recall extraction tool doesn't even trigger standard antivirus or endpoint detection and response alerts.
You can run the extraction as a standard, non-administrator user process, and the computer's alarms stay completely silent.
It's basically leaving the master key to your house under a neon doormat.
But the most infuriating detail in the sources is how Microsoft internally views this situation. They don't view this as a catastrophic breach of user trust.
They don't view it as a fundamental failure of their technical architecture. The internal leak suggests they view this entirely as a PR failure.
A public relations issue.
It's infuriating. And, even if we look away from the mega corporations and look at the open source world, the squeeze is happening there too. Look at TrueNAS.
TrueNAS is a massively popular, historically open source operating system for network-attached storage.
Basically, the software people use to build their own massive hard drive servers at home.
They just announced they're moving their build system to closed source.
Now, to be fair to TrueNAS, they were very careful to note that the core operating bits of the software remain open under the GPLv3 license.
Let me stop you there. What does GPLv3 actually mean in plain English for the user?
Well, the General Public License version 3 is a copyleft license. In plain English, it means you are free to take the code, use it, and modify it however you want. But if you distribute your modified version, you must make your new source code available for everyone else.
It's the ultimate share your homework rule of the internet. It ensures software stays free and communal.
Okay, so if the core is still under that share your homework rule, why close off the build system?
The TrueNAS chief technology officer explained the economic reality they were facing. They had a rapidly growing problem with bad actors, essentially parasite companies.
These companies were taking the TrueNAS code, using the automated build systems to package it up, and then selling those closed-source commercial derivatives under their own branding.
They were completely ignoring the GPL licensing obligations to share their homework, and they were contributing absolutely nothing back to the actual engineering and development effort.
TrueNAS had to close the factory doors to stop people from stealing the assembly line.
I totally get why they had to do it to survive, but it still feels like the wall's closing in. Another door locking.
So if you are listening to this, what does this all mean for you?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are observing a highly coordinated, industry-wide push toward realizing the World Economic Forum's infamous concept, you will own nothing and be happy.
The very concept of digital autonomy and ownership is under sustained, aggressive attack from every angle.
Adobe treats you like a hostile hostage when you try to leave their ecosystem. Microsoft forces persistent, deeply flawed surveillance infrastructure onto your local personal hardware.
Plex holds your own personal, curated media library for ransom. And hardware companies like Nvidia want to replace the handcrafted art you bought with an ever-shifting AI subscription tier.
The era of buying a product, putting it on a shelf, and simply owning it forever is actively being dismantled.
And that, beautifully and inevitably, is exactly why the users are rebelling.
If the walled gardens are getting more expensive, if they're squeezing us, spying on us, and overwriting our reality,
How are people breaking out? This brings us to the good news. This is where the fight back happens. People are finding incredibly clever, resilient ways to take their digital lives back, starting with a massive migration to Linux.
for a very long time, the prevailing narrative against adopting Linux as a daily operating system was that it was overly complicated, required constant terminal commands, and, crucially, you simply couldn't play modern, high-end video games on it.
Based on the data we are looking at today, that narrative is entirely dead.
Utterly dead and buried.
I was reading through the stack of notes you put together on this, and there was this wild, highly detailed story about a tech host's experience running Linux on an incredibly obscure piece of hardware.
They were running an operating system called Kubuntu.
Now, I know what Ubuntu is. It's the most popular flavor of Linux. But what makes the K version special here?
The K stands for KDE. In the Linux world, the core engine of the operating system is separate from the graphical user interface, the windows, the taskbars, the menus.
KDE is a specific desktop environment.
Right. It is renowned for being incredibly customizable, sleek, and for feeling very familiar to someone transitioning away from Windows. It gives you the power of Linux without forcing you to stare at a black screen with green text.
Okay, that makes sense. So this host takes this highly customized Kubuntu setup, running on an obscure laptop featuring AMD's brand new Strix Halo hardware, and they travel to Japan.
And just for clarity, Strix Halo is a massive APU, an accelerated processing unit.
It essentially smashes a highly powerful multi-core CPU and a massive gaming-grade graphics processor onto a single silicon chip, rather than having them as separate components in the laptop.
It is a beast of an engineering feat.
Right. So they take this beastly, obscure laptop to Japan running a free, open-source operating system, and the experience they reported was downright magical. Let's talk about HDR, high dynamic range lighting.
On Windows, getting HDR to work properly on a monitor is notoriously finicky. It washes out colors, it flickers, you have to dig through 5 submenus.
On this Linux setup, they enabled flawless HDR with a single, simple slider. It just worked.
They also noted a granular quality of life feature that speaks volumes about open source development. The built-in screen brightness could be adjusted to go incredibly, remarkably dim.
This fixes a massive, long-standing annoyance in Windows, where the lowest brightness setting is always just slightly too bright when you are working in a pitch-black room straining your eyes.
Why does Linux do this better? Because someone in the open source engineering community got annoyed by a bright screen late at night, wrote the code to fix it, and shared it with the world.
Exactly. It's software built by users for users, and the real kicker of this whole story.
They booted up God of War, the incredible 2018 PlayStation blockbuster, and played it flawlessly on a random Linux laptop using a third-party controller.
Think about how insane that technical achievement is. A modern flagship console game designed specifically for PlayStation architecture, running beautifully on a free operating system on an obscure laptop chip.
Now, to be completely transparent, there were minor hiccups noted in the source. An Xbox Bluetooth controller absolutely refused to pair for some deeply buried driver reason.
But the core experience of high-end gaming on Linux is officially here. It is viable.
It represents a profound psychological shift in the tech landscape. Windows is constantly adding unremovable bloatware, forcing you to use their Edge browser, and integrating unencrypted AI surveillance.
Linux, by contrast, is an operating system that is constantly getting faster, leaner, and better because it is built by a global community of people who actually use it, rather than a corporation trying to extract maximum quarterly value from it.
And this deep-seated desire for autonomy, for a system that works for you rather than against you, is also driving a massive, surprising resurgence in physical media.
This one blew my mind, truly. Sony just officially issued firmware patch 4.93 for the PlayStation 3.
Now let's do the math here. The PlayStation 3 launched in November of 2006.
It is a 20-year-old console. Why on earth is Sony dedicating engineering resources to patch a machine from 2 decades ago?
Because Netflix recently announced they're permanently discontinuing support for the PS3 app. So Sony released this update primarily to renew the Blu-ray encryption keys.
And we should explain why that matters. Blu-ray discs use constantly rotating digital encryption keys to prevent piracy.
If a Blu-ray player, in this case the PS3, doesn't have its internal keys periodically updated via the internet, it will physically refuse to play newer movies.
By updating those keys right as the streaming apps die, Sony effectively turned millions of these ancient dust-gathering consoles into dedicated, highly capable, offline physical media players.
Which is exactly what people are desperately searching for right now. The sources highlight a fascinating trend. Local, physical rental stores, like an independent place mentioned in the data called Willow Video, are suddenly booming again.
The owners are reporting that the stores are packed with customers renting physical Blu-rays for $4 overnight or renting older console games for $10 a week.
Entire shelves of older, niche movies are completely rented out, just like a Friday night at Blockbuster in 1999.
But we have to ask the sociological question, why? Why would a modern consumer willingly leave the comfort of their couch, drive to a physical store, and pay $4 to rent a piece of plastic when they theoretically have infinite streaming options at their fingertips?
Because people are profoundly exhausted by the fragmented subscription landscape. You pay for Netflix, Disney+, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and what do you actually get?
You get an algorithmically generated, infinitely scrolling feed of homogenized slop.
You spend 45 minutes on the couch just scrolling past thousands of thumbnail images without ever picking anything.
And if you do finally pick something, you have no idea if it is actually any good, because the platforms intentionally hide user reviews and ratings to trick you into watching mediocre content to boost their metrics.
The autonomy is gone. The serendipity of discovery is gone.
When you walk into a physical store, you are making a deliberate, tactile choice. You are paying $4 to rent a DVD of a 90s cult classic comedy like Major Payne without a Rotten Tomatoes consensus score preemptively popping up on screen to tell you that you shouldn't enjoy it.
You physically hold the experience in your hands for that night. No algorithm can interrupt you, no licensing dispute can delete the movie halfway through, and no internet connection can buffer your movie.
It's a return to tangibility. It's taking back control. And surprisingly, we are seeing some massive tech giants actually read the room on this desire for tangibility and offer highly repairable hardware.
And the shocker here? It's Apple.
Apple, the company famous for gluing everything shut, just released the MacBook Neo.
This is perhaps the most surprising piece of data in the entire stack. Apple released a laptop targeting the entry-level market for just $600 and only $500 for the education market.
And it is not a piece of plastic disposable junk. It has a premium unibody aluminum top. But crucially, historically, it is incredibly repairable.
It uses actual, normal, standard screws on the bottom plate.
You don't need a proprietary heat gun to melt the glue. You can just take a screwdriver and pop it open to clean the fans or replace the battery.
It features a stunning, high-resolution 2408 by 1506 display.
And the keyboard is so tactile and well engineered out of the box that the tech host analyzing it in the source material hit 101 words per minute on their very first typing test. It is a tool designed to be used and maintained.
It is essential to contrast Apple's highly practical, affordable, repairable approach here with what their primary competitor, Samsung, is doing.
Samsung recently released the Galaxy Z trifold phone. This is a massive, complex, highly fragile luxury device that unfolds 3 times.
The retail price,
Yeah.
$3,000.
Huh.
And Samsung completely ceased production of the device after just 3 months on the market,
3 months. Why?
because they only sold about 3,000 units globally. The official reasoning cited was the astronomically high costs for DRAM and NAND flash memory.
Okay, break that down for me. Why did those specific components kill a $3,000 phone?
Think of DRAM as the phone's short-term memory. It's the desk space where the phone actively works on apps.
NAND flash is the long-term memory, the filing cabinet where your photos are stored.
To make a phone that folds 3 times, the internal circuit boards have to be impossibly thin and incredibly dense.
Sourcing ultra-miniaturized, high-capacity DRAM and NAND that won't overheat or crack when physically folded costs an absolute fortune.
It completely destroyed Samsung's profit margins, rendering the device economically unviable.
It's pure poetic irony. The ultra-expensive, hyper-complex, foldable future of tech is dead on arrival, while a basic $600 laptop with actual screws on the bottom is being hailed by the tech community as a masterpiece.
It just goes to show we are living in a bizarre timeline when it is significantly easier to play a modern PlayStation console game on a random Linux laptop, or fix an Apple computer with a standard screwdriver, than it is to cleanly cancel an Adobe subscription.
The common thread linking all of these behaviors, the migration to Linux gaming, the resurgence of renting Blu-rays, and the demand for repairable laptops, is the fundamental human desire for autonomy.
Users are actively, aggressively rejecting digital ecosystems that treat them merely as data metrics to be manipulated. They want tools they can control.
I love that. They want tools they can control, but, and there is always a but in the tech world.
There's always a but.
While you and I are figuring out how to run Kubuntu and dusting off our DVD collections to watch Major Payne, massive, unimaginable amounts of money are being spent behind closed doors to rewrite the very legal rules of the internet.
We are moving into the final phase of today's deep dive, the hidden hands shaping the future.
Now, as we get into this final section, I want to be super clear with you listening. We are going to touch on
Not even the post office, in this case, Meta's servers, can open the box to see the contents. Removing this feature is a massive, fundamental step backward for global user privacy.
It turns that locked box back into a postcard that anyone at the post office can read.
Right. But the timing of this removal is highly suspect, and this is where the lobbying comes in. Because simultaneously, an independent financial researcher uncovered that Meta spent a record-breaking $26.3 million lobbying across 45 different states in America.
They deployed over 86 registered lobbyists, and what were they spending tens of millions of dollars pushing for?
A piece of state-level legislation called the App Store Accountability Act.
To get this specific act passed, the financial trails in our sources show that Meta covertly funded a coalition group calling itself the Digital Childhood Alliance.
On the surface, this group presented itself to lawmakers and the public as a passionate, grassroots child safety organization founded by concerned parents.
But when the researcher dug into the actual IRS filings and corporate domain registries, the facade crumbled.
They found this grassroots group had less than $25,000 in gross IRS receipts for the entire year.
Furthermore, its fully formed, highly polished, professionally copywritten website magically went live on the internet less than 24 hours after the domain name was registered.
It was a textbook, highly funded AstroTurf campaign designed to look like a spontaneous public movement.
AstroTurfing at its finest, fake grassroots. And what does this App Store Accountability Act actually do if it gets passed?
It forces Apple and Google, the companies that run the iOS and Android operating systems, to build and maintain complex age verification infrastructure at the root OS level.
Which fundamentally, permanently changes how your smartphone works. It essentially mandates the creation of a persistent, queryable identity layer for all applications.
Imagine a scenario where every single time you tap to open an app, your device is legally required to verify your age, potentially referencing highly sensitive personal identification data like a driver's license or biometric scan stored on the device.
But here is the masterful, deeply cynical stroke of corporate lobbying. The bill places the entire financial and legal burden of building and enforcing this compliance on Apple and Google.
While specifically, explicitly exempting social media platforms like Meta's own Instagram and Facebook from having to do any of the heavy lifting or accept any of the legal liability themselves.
It is breathtaking corporate warfare. Meta spent $26 million to literally rewrite the law, forcing their biggest competitors to spend billions building a highly controversial surveillance layer into your phone while completely washing their own hands of the responsibility.
And speaking of billionaires throwing unthinkable amounts of money around to shape the law, let's look at the proposed California billionaire tax.
Again, looking strictly at the math and the mechanics, not the politics.
The proposal in California is a one-time 5% tax levied on extreme, ultra-high net worth wealth.
According to the financial data, Google co-founder Sergey Brin has reportedly spent $45 million actively lobbying and fighting against this proposed legislation.
Now, $45 million sounds like an insane amount of money to spend on lawyers and lobbyists, until you look at his actual wealth.
He is doing it to protect an estimated $12 billion personal tax liability. If you spend $45 million to save $12 billion, that is just a phenomenal rational return on investment from a purely mathematical standpoint.
By contrast, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang, the guy behind the DLSS 5 AI we talked about earlier, publicly stated in an interview with Bloomberg that he is perfectly fine with paying the tax.
It really highlights a fascinating growing fracture within Silicon Valley's ruling class regarding how they view their social and economic obligations to the physical locations where they operate.
And that collision, the friction between frictionless digital profits and the messy reality of the physical world, is happening everywhere.
If we want to see a different approach to regulation, we have to look across the Atlantic to the European Union, which is taking a drastically, aggressively different approach to reining in tech giants.
Starting in June 2026, the EU is radically, fundamentally overhauling the PG game rating system.
PJ is the European equivalent of the ESRB here in North America. It's the governing body that slaps the age rating on the bottom corner of a video game box to tell parents if it's safe for kids.
The EU is making a brilliant move. They are linking the age rating directly, inextricably, to the game's monetization mechanics.
Under these new rules, any video game that features loot boxes or gacha slot machine mechanics automatically, by default, receives an age rating of 16 and up, period.
If the game incorporates NFTs or cryptocurrency elements, it instantly becomes an 18-plus, mature-only title.
And we should explain why gacha mechanics are being targeted so aggressively. Gacha refers to systems where a player spends real-world money for a randomized chance to win a digital item, a new character, a weapon skin.
It utilizes the exact same variable ratio reward schedule found in casino slot machines.
Psychologically, it is designed to bypass rational financial planning and trigger dopamine hits, which is particularly devastating to the developing brains of children.
By slapping a 16-plus or 18-plus rating on these games, the EU is effectively banning these titles from being marketed to kids and severely limiting their visibility on digital storefronts.
Which cuts off the money supply, and there is more. If a game uses time-limited offers, like a battle pass that heavily exploits a player's fear of missing out, like play for 40 hours this month or lose this skin forever, it gets pushed to a 12-plus rating.
However, the EU included this highly experimental, utterly brilliant rule. A developer can lower that 12-plus rating back down to a family-friendly 7-plus rating if they include a hard toggle in the game settings to completely disable all real money spending by default.
It is a legislative mandate for user autonomy. It gives the parent or the user a literal off switch for the corporate squeeze.
This raises an important question. If the EU can sit down and implement a highly logical, deeply practical system that actively protects kids from predatory casino-style gacha mechanics by empowering the user with a hard toggle, why is North American legislation seemingly being driven by $26 million shadow AstroTurf campaigns funded by the very corporations that stand to profit from the surveillance?
Because, as we've seen throughout this entire deep dive, the battle for control is no longer just happening in the software we use, it is happening in the legislation that governs our physical reality.
The tech giants realize that writing clever code is no longer enough to maintain their walled gardens. They must rewrite the law itself to protect their monopolies.
And sometimes the digital world's relentless pursuit of engagement and disregard for reality has literal, devastating physical consequences.
Which brings us to a terrifying, concrete example from British Columbia to close this out.
Firefighters in Canada are actively, desperately begging the public to stop flying consumer drones over active, raging wildfires.
We aren't talking about massive military drones. We are talking about the small, unregulated 250-gram plastic drones you can buy at a big box store.
Why are people flying them into infernos? Because they're trying to capture dramatic, viral video footage for their social media feeds to get likes.
And the consequence. One of these tiny drones recently collided mid-flight with a Canadian Super Scooper water bomber.
And the aerodynamics of a massive aircraft are delicate. A 250-gram piece of hard plastic and lithium batteries hitting the turbine or the windshield of a plane flying at high speeds through heavy smoke is a catastrophic safety hazard.
It completely grounded the aircraft. Think about the chain of events here. An incredibly expensive, highly specialized aircraft, a machine physically necessary to stop a catastrophic fire from burning down a physical town, was grounded, rendering it useless because an individual user prioritized chasing digital engagement metrics on an app over physical reality.
It is the perfect, tragic encapsulation of our current era. The digital and physical worlds are colliding violently, and the blind pursuit of algorithmic engagement is actively causing real-world harm.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's take a breath and summarize this incredible journey.
We started by looking at how the very pixels on our screens are being manipulated, analyzing Nvidia's DLSS 5, and the profound philosophical debate over whether AI should overwrite human artistic intent to chase a mathematical, homogenized beauty standard.
We saw how Google and Dig are deploying AI to manipulate headlines, optimize for clicks, and automate our internet, which is rapidly leading to a digital ecosystem choking to death on its own synthetic slop.
We then explored the harsh reality of the corporate squeeze. We examined how Adobe treats its users like hostages with hidden fees and labyrinthian phone trees, how Microsoft is pushing deeply flawed, unencrypted surveillance onto our hard drives with Windows Recall, and how Plex is putting fundamental core features behind paywalls.
The very concept of digital ownership and user autonomy is on life support.
But we also found hope. We found the escape tunnels being dug under the walled garden. Users are discovering that they can install Linux to play massive games like God of War flawlessly.
They are retreating to 20-year-old PS3s in physical video stores to watch Blu-rays to escape the endless algorithmic streaming fatigue.
And they are enthusiastically embracing hardware that respects them, like highly repairable $600 laptops with actual screws.
And finally, we pulled back the heavy curtain on the shadow lobbying, exploring how tens of millions of dollars are being spent by tech giants to build identity tracking into our phones, while the EU fights back with brilliant mechanism-based age ratings to protect kids from digital casinos.
It truly is a massive ongoing tug-of-war. The corporate walls are getting higher, the surveillance is getting deeper, but the user community is undeniably getting smarter, more resourceful, and much more resilient.
Which brings me back to the exact image we started with. That pristine, curated walled garden is twisting into a funhouse mirror maze, and users are frantically digging escape tunnels under the walls to get out.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over as you navigate your own digital life this week. If tech companies are currently spending billions training their AI to maximize human engagement at any cost, and users are actively, predictably retreating to the tangibility of physical media, 20-year-old offline consoles, and open-source Linux to escape that psychological manipulation, what happens when the algorithms inevitably realize that selling us our own nostalgia and autonomy is actually the most profitable metric of all?
Will this entire grassroots rebellion just be packaged up and sold back to us as another $9.99 a month premium subscription tier?
That is a chilling, entirely plausible thought. Once the corporations figure out how to mathematically package the feeling of escape, they will happily just sell us the shovels we need to dig our own tunnels.
Thank you so much for joining us on this massive deep dive. Take a hard look around your own digital life this week.
Question the default settings on your devices, demand autonomy over your data, and maybe, just maybe, go out and buy a physical DVD. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.